go.
Okay.
You don't have to stand yet.
No, me too. My bag's always in the way.
All right. I now call this meeting of the Narragansett Regional School District to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just as a reminder to everyone, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded on YouTube and onto our Facebook page, should you wish to watch it after the fact or while it is airing. So first up in our agenda is approval of the meeting minutes of May 17th, 2023. I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 18th as written.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions, comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I'm going to amend that to May 17th. All in favor of approving the minutes of May 17th as written?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Thank you for the correction. All right, bills and payroll, those have all been taken care of. So, but there's nothing attached, right, okay. So we can move forward. We don't have any appearances tonight, though we do have a number of folks from the public here. So what I do want to do is just, I'm going to read through our policy as it relates to public participation at school committee meetings. Before I read that policy, I do just want to remind folks here that what falls under the purview of the school committee is anything related to budgeting, anything related to a hiring or firing of the superintendent, and anything related to policy. So we do not handle anything related to staffing. We do not handle anything related to extracurriculars. And while we welcome anyone who wishes to speak at the meeting tonight, I did just want to set expectations up front as to what the school committee manages. Though we do love to hear from the public, and so I do welcome that. So the policy as written is that, and I'm at the start of each regularly scheduled school committee meeting, individuals will sign in for an opportunity to speak. So this is your heads up that if you haven't signed in and wish to speak, please do so now. The public comment segments shall not exceed 15 minutes, and all speakers are encouraged to present their remarks in a respectful manner. Speakers will be allowed up to 3 minutes to present their material and must begin their comments by stating their name and their city or town. I can extend that time if folks need it. We do prefer that topics for discussion are limited to those within the school committee scope of authority, but as I've already stated, we do want to hear from our community, so I will allow other topics tonight. We do reserve the right to terminate speech after a warning if it's in any way inappropriate. And I do want to caveat that we also need to be careful not to name specific students or any specific staff, as that would be a breach of privacy. Okay. And then any written comments should be presented to Susan if you do have a written copy, so that she can have that as a copy for her minutes. All right? So I just summarized it, but it's fully available online. Okay, so is anyone interested in speaking? All right. We did actually have a letter come in that I did want to read in terms of feedback to the committee. So this letter came from Callan. Did you happen to get a full name? And I'll let you.
Pacier.
Callan Pacier. And they are residents of Templeton. So it says, "Good afternoon. I hope you are doing well. I am new to town and my daughter currently attends the school. We have been kindly welcomed and are very grateful. I have never done this before, but I was hoping to bring up an item for a future meeting. My concern is the playground flooring material at TES. Though it is great at preventing injuries and looks very nice, it looks like it is in need of repair. Also, there have been studies showcasing the health benefits of untreated playground mulch over rubber/synthetic flooring materials. Again, I am new, so I'm not sure if this has been previously discussed, budget constraints, etc. I mean no disrespect by bringing this to your attention. The playground is amazing and my kids love playing there. Thank you for your time and everything you do." So thanks very much to Callan for writing in. This is really great feedback from our community. This is exactly the type of feedback we want to hear. So what I'm going to recommend is most of our subcommittees are going to be breaking for the summer. They won't be meeting again until the fall. That said, there is a committee that will handle facilities, and so I'll be referring this to them for discussion in relation to everything else that the facility needs upgrades on. So thank you very much to Callan for writing it. All right. If there's no further public input, and I don't see NDEA here.
Nope.
Oh, look at that timing. Hello. Well, we're very glad you arrived safely. That was quite a storm out there. We would love to hear from you on any updates for the NDEA.
The major update is that, and as you might have already heard, that we just had a beautiful retirement social for Christine Woodrow and Jean Tui for our retirement this year.
Wonderful.
Lots and lots of past retirees were there. Having the best anyone that we've had in a long time. So that's where I was. I was kind of getting here and I was waiting for it to stop raining, so I just went to my car. Other than that, I'm just kind of wrapping up the school year and then all their end of the year games. Field trips. And field days next week.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the update, and please pass along our congratulations to Mrs. Boudreau. She has had quite a career here, and my own son is in her math class and mentions her frequently and fondly. So thanks very much to her, and also you're near the end. You've almost made it. All right. So moving on to our budget updates. So Anne Marie, I'm mostly going to hand this over to you, but what updates do you have for us as it relates to FY23, or do you want to just move right ahead to the budget transfers?
Yeah, we can just move right there.
Okay.
FY23, we're just working on closing out the year and getting ready to start the new one. On the budget transfers, what those are exactly is, if you've looked at the business manager reports, you'll see like there's different categories, like administrative, instructional, facilities. Those categories, if you see them in the red, these transfers move the money around amongst our whole general fund budget to take care, because like sometimes we know that if we had to have an extra para for some reason and it wasn't budgeted, we need to make sure we save money in another line item to cover that. So that's what these transfers do, and I'm not going to read through all of these, probably 50 of them. I'm just going to highlight a couple of the major ones. One of the biggies this year is we're going to move money from our health insurance account to various other accounts that are in the red, but the reason that we had money left over in health insurance, which we don't ever do, is the NDEA has in their contract an opt-out provision, and we actually had 6 people opt out this year, which saved the money that you see on here, $150,000. So it's huge. There's an incentive for the NDEA as well. When they do, it really works well for the district. So that's one of the larger ones. A couple of other biggies is our tuitions to collaboratives and private schools. You've all heard about the Thrive program. when we brought those students back, we saved on those tuitions, but that money, you'll see, it gets moved now to cover the teacher and the paras that were for them. So those are some of the large ticket ones that had money left over that's moving to fund a lot of the other accounts that are in the red. Those are the big dollar ones. There's a lot of 7,500 here and there because we were running so tight this year. I had to kind of grab from everywhere and scrape to make it all work. But the bottom line is not in the red, and that's the most important part.
So I'm just going to pause for a minute so folks can have just a second to scroll through and see if they have any questions about the transfers as presented. I would entertain a motion to authorize the business manager to make line item transfers as presented to close the fiscal year 2023 budget.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, any questions? Any outstanding questions about these line items?
No. Trying to get in before dark.
I saw that. All right. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, so that's unanimous. Okay. And then fiscal year 24, anything on?
I don't think so. There's nothing
We still haven't heard,
We'll-
definitely 24, I mean.
Yeah, we'll get our final budget,
Final
usually it
budget.
comes in July.
Okay.
So if we need to make any changes, usually we do that in September, August or September.
Okay. All right. Well, we're moving right along into ongoing business and the business manager's report. So Anne Marie, you are still on deck.
So they're all attached. If you look at the general fund one, you can see where these numbers on the transfers came from, because it's all spelled out there. The grants are winding down. You'll see a lot of them have been closed out. They've got zero balances, and by the time we actually get to June 30th, the majority of them will be. A few of our entitlement grants, like Title I, Title II, our SPED IDA grant, those have some monies that will roll over to help with next year. But for the most part, they're all winding down, and lots of them already have zero balances.
Okay. All right. Moving on to technology leases. This is a pretty standard order of business. Every year, we need to reapprove the technology leases. All the information, the contracts are attached here. Anything of note? from
These are two new leases. These
New
are the ones that
leases,
you
okay.
approve. The ones that are ongoing, you've approved them in the past.
Right.
So these are two new ones that we will be entering in as of
Okay.
July 1st. One of them, the Dell, is for Chromebooks, which goes in accordance with our tech plan, because every
Okay.
year we take old ones off and add new ones in. So this is just the new one. One Dell one will come off this year, make our final payment. This one is a new one. And then the second one is for iPads, which are typically used with our special ed students for some of the younger grades and stuff. So that's this one too. So every year we should have one or two new ones, and the old ones follow up.
Got it. All right. So I would entertain a motion to approve the technology leases as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions about any of these leases? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, so that's unanimous. All right, so Superintendent fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23 summative evaluation. So first of all, I have to give a big thank you to the school committee members who all rallied and took all of the great inputs from our last meeting from Dr. Casper and Molly and used those to fill in the summative evaluation. And then an extra special thanks to Danielle, who then used her expertise in these summative evaluations to take all the inputs from each school committee member and put it together in a summary. And so that summary is very much a summary. So Danielle, did you want to just speak a little bit to how you accumulated the different pieces and brought it together?
Sure. So the form that's attached is DESI's form for summative evaluation for superintendents. It encompasses all of the goals that Dr. Casper had written and worked on for the last 2 years. I used just the standard process for writing evaluations. It's SJEIR, stands for Standard Judgment, Evidence, Impact, and Recommendations. That's what we normally do when you're doing an evaluation. So if you look at the summaries, that's the process that I use. So the initial statement is the rating, which is the standard, is the standard, and then the judgment is the rating. So it's proficient, needs improvement, exemplary, and so on. And then we used evidence from the wonderfully prepared evidence document that Dr. Casamet shared with us at our last meeting. In addition, I used the feedback that was provided on all of the school committee members' survey. So the summaries are just a combination of all of those key pieces together. And so I don't know, do we need to go through this, or is it what's the process we need to go through other than we just vote that this is our...
So the process is supposed to be public. So what I'd suggest that we do is sort of spend a little bit of time on each one, not necessarily reading, but kind of talking through it. A couple other things I would add is where a rating might have been different by different school committee members. We did sort of go by what majority said, where if there was a tie, then we went, if we needed to break a tie, we did look at what was the seniority, and seniority in relation to years on the committee, which does matter since those folks with more seniority had more exposure to this particular time period where the rating occurred. And so essentially, for those of you who are joining us today, there's a very standard rubric that is used to evaluate a superintendent's performance. And so there's a rating against goals, and then there's a rating against standards. So the goals as they were selected were a student learning goal, identify and address students' needs across academic and social emotional domains, and the rating was met. The possible ratings or did not meet, some progress, significant progress, met, or exceeded. So the rating was met. A professional practice goal, which is related to developing a deeper cultural context and awareness by identifying and addressing opportunity gaps facing specific student groups, which was additionally met. I'm going to skip over District Improvement Goal 1 and District Improvement Goal 2 because those are really represented in the previous two that I just reviewed. District Improvement Goal number 3 was to strengthen relationships through communication that is timely, responsive, collaborative, and inclusive. And it was rated that there was significant progress against that goal. And then finally, District Improvement Goal number 4, which was related to improving the systems and supports that directly affect both our students and members of staff. That goal was listed as met. Now, there isn't written feedback against these, but Dr. Casavant, I would welcome if you have any specific questions or you would like to hear any feedback against these before we go into the standards. Then certainly I think anyone can feel free to speak up or to share. If there was something you placed into your individual feedback that you wanted to make sure got stated in this meeting, then please, by all means, feel free to do so.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, obviously, it came to me, early afternoon, so I mean, and not that I'm,
We know
No, we
you're getting this
apologize for
live.
that.
yeah, so I'm not, right, so no. But I don't think I have any questions.
Okay.
On the goals themselves you're talking about in terms of
Yes,
the
on
overall
the
rating?
goals themselves,
Right,
yep.
yeah.
So we'll go through it one by one so
Yeah,
that you're
sure. I'll
not
just-
having to.
Yep.
All right. So then, standard number 1 was related to instructional leadership. So in this rubric, so that folks have an understanding, these are set by DESE, and so they have a number of different selections you can make as to which areas of instructional leadership you plan to focus on for that 2-year period. And for this 2-year period, Dr. Cassavant focused on evaluation, data-informed decision-making, so using multiple sources of evidence related to student learning, including state, district, and school assessment results and growth data to inform school and district goals and improve organizational performance, which was rated as met. And additionally, student learning, which demonstrates expected impact on student learning based on multiple measures of student learning, growth, and achievement, including student progress on common assessments and statewide student growth measures where available. And overall rating on instructional leadership was met. Or proficient, I'm sorry. So in this one, it's, help me, what's the U? Unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, exactly, thank you. And the feedback on that, I'm just going to read this. So Dr. Cassavant has demonstrated proficiency in Standard 1 indicators E and F. He led administrative teams through a data analysis process that focused on the results of MCAS STAR beginning of year, STAR middle of year assessments in order to create intervention programs. Learning walkthroughs were scheduled and executed with clear expectations regarding their focus and specific data that would be collected from the process. The administrative team reviewed DCAPs in order to analyze data regarding interventions, accommodations, and growth. Dr. Cassavant encouraged the use of various stakeholders in the district's SIP, School Improvement Plan, in order to provide voice for all school community members as SMART goals were created to reflect the identified needs of the district. Data-informed decision-making is paramount to improve student learning. The use of data to create goals inspired by identified strengths and needs allows every student the ability to reach their full academic potential. And so I would invite, if there are any school committee members who wish to add additional comment related to this specific standard? No? And Dr. Cassavant, any questions?
No.
No. Okay. So moving on to Standard 2, Management and Operations. So in this rubric, the focus was environment. So developing and executing effective plans, procedures, routines, and operational systems to address a full range of safety, health, emotional, and social needs, which was rated as proficient. Law, ethics, and policies. Understands and complies with state and federal laws and mandates, school committee policies, collective bargaining agreements, and ethical guidelines, which is rated as proficient. Fiscal systems, develops a budget that supports the district's vision, mission, and goals, allocates and manages expenditures consistent with district and school level goals and available resources, again rated proficient, with an overall rating for management and operations as proficient. So the comments here were that Dr. Cassavant has demonstrated proficiency in Standard 2 indicators A, D, and E. He led his administrative teams through a data collection and analysis process that focused on BIMAS and SEL assessments, social emotional learning assessments, in which the results of this process were used to guide the creation of goals by the BIMAS data team. Dr. Cassavant created a capital improvement plan for the district and led administrative teams and the school committee through a challenging budgeting process for the 2022 to 2023 and 23 to 24 school years. The district consistently invests in improvements to the school environment and policies such as improving our wellness policy and creating an equity committee. So it was noted that actively soliciting non-staff members families, volunteers, and the greater community feedback as it pertains to this standard was not observed regularly. The committee overwhelmingly felt that the provided evidence proved proficiency in managing the district's operations. So to repeat that, looking for some additional inclusion of those non-staff members in future on some budgeting, et cetera. Sound fiscal and operational management systems are necessary to ensure that the district's short and long-term goals and priorities are attained and all processes are completed within mandated timeframes and meet the requirements of the public institutions involved. So, school committee, anyone wish to add anything or highlight something from their individual feedback that was not captured? We did try to ensure that all summaries included a little bit from each individual's input.
Madam Chair, I do have a question, though. I just want to go back to that last sentence about actively soliciting non-staff members. I'm not sure, and I think that I would need some clarity, given that we had, I don't know, at least 3 budget hearings. We had the joint meeting, with both towns. It was televised, recorded, up on our Facebook page. We solicited, if there's any, so I'd like some clarity on how would one solicit more participation from the community when we utilized almost 3 of the 4, in terms of technology, to do that. And quite frankly, I would just say that I think in one meeting we had 2 people here, and they happened to be a Templeton Select Board member, I believe, and a Phillipston finance person. So I would want some feedback on how that could be improved.
Anybody?
That was an individual comment made by someone who filled out the survey. I'm not sure. Person wants to.
I think it meant more as a comment towards environment, not budgeting. On the first indicator.
Which one? Environment?
Yeah,
Oh, not, you're saying.
2-A.
Not necessarily to the budgeting process.
Correct.
To 2A,
Yeah.
environment, okay.
Develops and executes effective plans, procedures, routines, and operational systems to address a full range of safety, health, environmental, and social needs.
So, one way that I might interpret this, and certainly anyone could add comment, we did one really big survey this year around communication, and I think that survey was well-received, and we poured over the data from that survey. I think there's some appetite for more regular solicitation of, or engaging the community for input on topics affecting the community, that would go over very well. I think the challenge is, how do you balance not too many surveys, because people also get annoyed with surveys. We hear complaints about biomass on occasion, though those are critical surveys, with also having some sort of regular cadence of input from the community, whether it relates to policy or budgeting, et cetera. Though certainly I think you're right as well, Dr. Casavant, that it's a tough topic because these are public meetings, and though we have significant attendance tonight, that's not the usual case. And so it is a
Certainly,
it is a
and I don't
struggle.
want it to be, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I don't want it to be, it seems like a criticism
No.
of a comment. I take it seriously, of course, I do. I will certainly, we'll talk, we will talk further, and we can certainly improve how to reach out to the public. I would say, though, I would like some specific examples on how to do that. And I think that in the end, if I may, that whether people show up or not, you can only ask so many times, and eventually you have to create a budget. And so I'm just saying that we've done a lot of work in this area. Obviously, there's more work to do, but I think being more specific with me
Would be helpful.
it would be helpful. And quite frankly, noticing the feedback that we do receive, and the famous saying of democracy works for those who show up. And so when you have 4 meetings and you put a lot of information out there, and not one email, not one text, not one Facebook page, not one thing, does it sound like we've worked hard to communicate. I'm going to work harder, but I think the committee would need to be more specific with me, and in how we're going to go about doing that.
All right. Anything else on standard 2? All right. Standard 3, family and community engagement. So on this rubric, the measurements were engagement actively ensures that all families are welcome members of the classroom and school community and can contribute to the effectiveness of the classroom, school, district, and community, marked proficient. Sharing responsibility, continuously collaborates with families and community stakeholders to support student learning and development at home, school, and in the community, marked proficient. And communication, engages in regular 2-way culturally proficient communication with families and community stakeholders about student learning and performance, again, marked proficient, with an overall rating of proficient. So the commentary here is that Dr. Cassavant has proven proficient in standard 3, indicators A, B, and C. Much time and attention was spent improving district communication during this evaluation cycle. A communication survey gathered data regarding preferred methods for, frequency of, and types of information shared with caregivers and the community. Data regarding the priorities of caregivers and community members was also collected for analysis. Changes were made to the district's website to enhance user experience, including the ability to adjust the language to the user's preferred language. The district's app allows students, families, and community members to stay connected to specific building activities, events, and news. Family interest surveys, information night flyers, family fun Saturdays, and coffee with the superintendent encourage families to participate fully in their students' educational experience. The committee recognizes that there was significant improvement in this standard, but would like to see continued focus on the communication indicator. A member felt that more communication and messaging needs to be shared, sent out around welcoming and encouraging families to become active participants in the classroom and school community. Effective communication with families and shared responsibility for the progress and growth of each student is instrumental to the success of each student. We look forward to seeing the continued focus on the partnership between the district and families as we work to ensure that all students reach their full potential. So, school committee members, any comments? Dr. Caspian, any
I'm good.
questions? All right.
Thank you.
Though I do want to note again that, there's a lot related to communication, and I do agree with Dr. Cassavant, the more constructive examples of opportunities for improvement. One thing that did come to mind, I know that there used to be classroom parents at one point. I don't know if that exists any longer. I know other schools also have reading programs where parents will either Zoom in to read to classrooms or even come into classrooms to read a book with students. So a couple opportunities that I know that exist in other districts that I have never seen here or never had the opportunity to participate in here. So perhaps it's not just about the district engaging with parents, but also about the classrooms themselves. Because outside of signing up for field day, which any Corey parent is welcome to do by Friday, by the way, if you have elementary school kids, at TES. But there's not a lot of opportunities with the classrooms themselves, at least not in my TES experience. So moving on to standard 4, professional culture. So in this rubric, we were focused on communication, demonstrated strong interpersonal written and verbal communication skills, marked as proficient. And shared vision successfully and continuously engages all stakeholders in the creation of a shared educational vision in which each student is prepared to succeed in post-secondary education and become a responsible citizen and global contributor. Mark proficient. Overall rating, proficient. So comments. Dr. Cassavant has proven proficiency in Standard 4, Indicator C and E. The district is in the beginning phases of creating a shared vision for an inclusive and equitable educational experience via the Equity Committee. The Equity Committee has created a draft vision and will continue their efforts into the 2023-2024 school year. Dr. Cassavant has sought out and secured funding for opportunities such as early college experience and vocational training. Communication with families, the school committee, caregivers, and governmental bodies is professional and timely and encourage families to voice their opinions regarding vision for their student and the district. A positive professional culture creates a safe space for all stakeholders to engage in creating a shared vision for the district. The committee values the documentation shared at meetings regarding school improvement plans and district initiatives. The committee looks forward to seeing more of the work being done by administrators. So any comments related to Standard 4? Dr. Cassavant, any questions?
No.
Okay. So, we do need to vote on this in order to submit it, and again, I thank everybody for the short turnaround. We learned about the deadline not very long ago, and so realized we needed to hustle a little bit. And so again, I truly do appreciate that, as well as Dr. Cassavant having all of his evidence well in advance of that, having presented at the last month's meeting. So, on that, I would entertain a motion to accept the summative evaluation report as presented. Second. Thank you. Second was Shauna. Do we have any questions or comments before moving to a vote?
The only comment I'd like to make is to offer my sincerest apologies for getting it to you this afternoon, because reading some evaluation in real time and reacting to it is such a difficult thing to do. And so you're handling yourself with grace, because I'm sure there's a million questions running through your head.
No, I appreciate that. I think that COVID knocked us off. We've been very open about this. It knocked us off schedule. So last year it was, it was the same plan, and then we, of course, then created a new district improvement plan, which we had to do. So, no, I'm happy with the feedback. I'm happy with any feedback, quite frankly. I just want to make sure that, I'll say it as I traditionally do. Communication is a two-way street. I hear plenty when things aren't going well. Plenty. I don't need to hear when things are going well. No one needs to, I'd like to hear that, right? I'd love to hear those things. But when we are actively engaging the community, especially around the area of budget, and I've been doing this a long time, either as a business manager or as the superintendent. It is frustrating for me when these opportunities present themselves and now they're on YouTube. You don't even have to go. You just have to watch. And then your friend can just tell you, just slide to minute 22:35. That's when he starts talking about the budget, right? Literally, that's how it goes. Again, I'm frustrated because we're working hard to make sure that we're being transparent. I want to make sure that that's reciprocated. Not that I can really want anything. I can want all I want, as they say. Those are the kind of things that I would say, and we're going to work hard. And if it's surveys, if it's, skywriting or whatever needs to happen, we will definitely make it happen for sure.
And I want to add to what you just said. There was a big discussion at the Templeton Town meeting, for example, around whether or not we should be voting on the RAC, the regional amendment. And I ended up standing up to say, hi, here are all the places that we could learn about this. And I understand it's really frustrating because, these are long meetings and it's hard for folks to come and sit through them, but it's also really difficult for us to know, where else do we put this information? It's in, a lot of different spaces, and so we are very open to feedback as to how to better reach folks, because you know, we sit in these meetings once or twice a month for hours at a time, and talk in great detail as to what's happening in the district and who it's impacting, and, you know, consider the different budget considerations or consider the rec. And then the community doesn't know about it, so it's tough to know how to breach that, but also, while also recognizing people have other things to do besides sit there and listen to our school committee meetings, though they are phenomenal, as you can tell. I mean, everyone out there is looking so excited. So I do want to recognize that. The other thing I want to recognize is we do have a lot of folks for whom this was the very first time filling out a summative evaluation. And so what I would encourage everyone to do, as you're hearing Dr. Casavan's request, is, you know, just as if you were filling out an evaluation for someone at work, including real-time examples, not just commentary on how you feel it was done or real examples of what could be done differently, are very much going to help Dr. Casavan understand where the feedback is coming from and how to move forward. But we're all in this space and we're all learning. You're all being very forgiving as I'm learning how to chair, which I deeply appreciate. So please do keep that in mind, and also know, as I have found, that Dr. Casavan's door is very much open to me when I've had to come in and say, hey, here's my thoughts on this. You must listen to them because I'm sitting across from you. And so also feel that opportunity is open to you, as well as this public forum here. So just wanted to state those things. So, yes, you may.
So yes, my apologies. And so I think what we're saying as a committee is that we need to make sure we're providing specific and actionable feedback in the future so that you can work to improve in the areas of the district that we would like the district to improve in. We also, I just wanted to know, the reason, we wanted to make sure we did this right for you.
Sure.
You deserve a thorough evaluation, and so we wanted to make sure we did it right for you, and we'll continue to get it right and better as we move along.
I'm very happy with it. I mean, honestly.
I know.
What more can you be but proficient?
Because I've sat and read the evaluations before, and it just kind of like everything stings, you know? At the same time you want it.
All right.
Did you bring any gold stars to soften the blow?
Dr. Casavan,
I
you
mean,
get a gold
you
star.
owe some of
The
us gold
elementary
stars.
school's right over there. I'm sure there's some gold stars somewhere nearby. All right. So,
Also, it actually, your new goals piggybacked very nice on your summer evaluation because you must have had like a crystal ball. All of your new goals are things that we had mentioned in your summer evaluation.
The savant behind this,
Unbelievable.
the sage
How
sits to
well.
my right. So,
How well that
quite
works.
frankly, if, to give credit where credit's due, Molly and I sat and we wanted to make sure that things, of course, aligned, because taking a right turn in any of these situations creates, well, it can create, issues. So, thank you.
all right. So, without any further questions, I'm going to move forward with the vote. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes. So that is unanimous. So we can go forward with submission, and if I need to sign it or anything, just let me know. Thank you. All right. School committee comments. Does anybody have any comments? And just as a reminder, this was the space that I said, if there are items that folks would like to see on upcoming agendas, this is a good time to request that. And then we will look throughout the upcoming year to see where it could be added.
I have a feel-good comment.
I like feel-good comments.
So I wanted to give a props and a shout out to our Templeton Elementary teachers last night, led by Ms. Gabby McDonald, who ran a math night for K and 1, upcoming K, current K, and 1. I could not count the crowd in the room because it was quite an onslaught when we finally opened the doors. PTO did snacks and water. It was the easy part. We sat back and watched, and it was, they did a great job. Every little kiddo had such a great time, and they left with a bag of math manipulatives, tiles, fraction strips that the PTO did provide for the kiddos. And then just to stay tuned. Details are being sorted out for a fourth grade celebration. Just added to the list was our fourth grade music, after-school music band instructor is going to put on a demonstration with the kiddos to start off what we're hoping will be a family celebration with keepsakes. So stay tuned because things got piled on top of each other and they're being sorted out. Anybody else?
All right.
Oh, I'd like to welcome Sean.
Oh, yeah, you beat me to it.
Thank you, Sean. It's so nice to have you with us tonight.
Yes, and I
Sorry.
echo the, I mean, you know.
Stole
beat me
your
to the ground.
thunder, I'm so sorry.
No, thank you, Sean. Very excited to have you join us this evening and know that this was a particularly fun drive for you from New Hampshire, right?
Yeah, well, not today, but.
Not today, all right. Well, thanks very much.
We'll see if he comes back next month.
Yeah.
It's a good thing I had Sean here, because I'll tell you what, she can point things. This has been,
It's
We
a learning
all go through it.
navigating this has been a challenge.
We all go through it. And then the other comment I wanted to make is I had the good fortune of attending graduation, and I would just like to say what a joyous, heart-filled event that was. As someone who attended a Catholic high school with a lot of rules, I have never been to a graduation event so filled with joy and happiness and energy, and it was really just wonderful to observe. And the student speakers all did a wonderful job. There was, I thank everyone who put up with not only shaking my hand, but then being held in place as we tried to get those photos of folks with their diplomas. So this person who is likely a stranger to many of the seniors says thank you for that. Thank you for tolerating it. But really, all the senior events were really wonderful and fantastic, and it must have taken so much work to put those on. And so just a big thank you to everyone who was involved, and
Thank
for
you, Ann.
an outside observer.
The chicken barbecue was wonderful. Tried to convince Dr. C to play some wiffle ball, and he said no.
Two of us may have gotten kicked out at the end.
We did
because
get kicked out at the end.
Hinted that we should leave.
It was a lot of fun. It was very well done. Even though apparently I crashed, I didn't know if I crashed the party. I didn't have the ticket. I had to steal someone else's ticket. I don't know what happened. I don't know what I did.
All right. Any other school committee comments tonight? All right. So moving into new business. So we do have a rate card approval update. So Anne Marie, can I just hand this over to you?
Yep, the only change that I would like you to make is to increase the custodian and CAP substitute rate from $15 an hour to $16 an hour. All the other rates are in line with our neighbors, and they seem to be working. I mean, we always need more subs, but it seems to be, we're at least getting some interest.
Okay. On that note, then, I would entertain a motion to approve the rate card as presented for FY24.
So moved.
Okay, second by Heather. So any questions or comments about the rate card?
Yeah, I think just my quick question is, and I think you were trending towards it, what's the competitiveness of this towards the budding community?
Well, as usual, we're the lowest, but on my business manager listserv, they do a lot of, like, across the state, they do a lot of surveys of salaries, and I was quite surprised to see that ours were quite comparable even to some of the, like, ones you wouldn't expect, like east of us, a lot of the, like, W towns. In all, there's a whole array. There's, like, you know, a lot of different criteria, like some you get this amount if you have this degree or if you do this. But for the most part, our teacher coverage was very competitive.
Mr. Case, I would say this about what you just mentioned. I'm waiting for there are 2 districts in our area that we border. We share all our contracts and for, just to make sure that see who's doing what, right. And 2 districts currently are wrapping up negotiations. So what I've done in the past, and will do again for the group actually, not only for our district, but I put together really a continuum of all of the salary scales, both for teachers and for paras. The other units are harder to find. Some are not unionized in every district in terms of custodial or cafeteria. It just doesn't always work out that way. But in the fall, I will hopefully gain their contracts, and we'll swap out, and I'll show and obviously present out to the committee, whatever, at your leisure, to see where we sit in all those areas. So we'll add those is what I'm trying to get to. We'll add the the subbing, and I'll try to figure it. I'll call and ask around what they do for their, for example, cafeteria, custodial, otherwise, if it's applicable.
Okay. Absent any other questions, we'll move to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Abstained. And I say yes, so that is 5 yes and 1 abstain. And then user fee rate approval, we have this on the agenda because it's something we approach this time of year, but I had heard from Susan that there's no changes this year, so nothing to vote on. Okay, so we will move past that one. All right, so next we have the 2023-2024 student handbook and bullying plan updates. So Molly, did you just want to sort of introduce this? Because I know this is something you were working on with the admin team.
Sure. So every year we review and update our handbook for approval. This year you'll see some changes specifically in relation to student disciplinary training as well. So we had to reflect that in our practice. You'll also see some changes in middle school towards the local section in the back that might at first look pretty extensive, but their changes are to reflect their changes in their shared expectations for behavior that you've heard earlier this year come to speak about that has taken place over the course of this year in middle school. So the majority of the changes are pretty minimal, with the exception of those 2. I did do a red line version so you can track and see where there were updated changes in that. And then in terms of the bullying prevention and intervention plan, that plan has been in place now for quite a few years. We are required by law every 2 years to review and set any amendments to that plan. In that, you're going to see a few changes that are proposed, primarily because it looks like over the years some of the language was adjusted and changed specifically around the definition of bullying that actually took away from some of the intended meaning in the legal definition. So we added that back in to represent, and then we actually had some sections in our bullying prevention and intervention plan that were not needed to be in the plan, and so you'll see some sections such as tips for teachers really doesn't belong in that plan, but we're going to be placing that in our mandatory training for teachers. So that information won't be lost, it just isn't applicable legally in the plan. So we're moving to suggesting moving to the plan to put it in our mandatory training.
So, any discussion on these? Any questions?
Yeah. We actually have several questions. Some of them are just minor, and then some of them involve like whole policies that are in the handbook. I don't know. First let me ask, is it possible to approve the handbook with the exception of one area moving forward? Can we table one area and approve the rest of the handbook before I bring up any questions?
Just looking at you, Hank.
Sure. I would caution.
Okay.
The answer to that is, we've done that before, certainly. The committee would, and I'm begging, would meet prior to school starting, because we need to, of course, post it and to do those things. We couldn't wait till August, let's put it that way, quite frankly, just because we need to, make that all happen, so.
And I will say there are places in our handbook where our school committee policies are copied and pasted.
Yep.
There are some school committee policies that will list that we're going to bring to the next meeting.
Okay.
So that will need revision. So we didn't make revisions to the handbook, it was just a copy and paste from the school committee policy.
Okay.
So that we do recognize there are some updates that are needed to some of the policies, but that's not our purview.
Okay.
Go through the handbook, we have to do the policy.
Okay, so then I'll be specific so that people don't think I'm shady. Anyway, so minor is, we always want to make sure that the language in our student handbook and our staff handbook is inclusive. And most of it was, and so I did a search for two of the major things that we look for. So the term parents without the use of caregivers next to it, not a problem at all, which there was 415 occurrences of that, so fabulous. But there are 9 occurrences of gendered language, such as he or she, and several areas where the term student or they, their, them was used. So I know that that is something that you can most likely look for, but there are still 9 occurrences of gendered language in there. We could somehow just replace that with student or their. The one area, and I have lots of questions here, but they're not anything that would impact my willingness to approve the student handbook. The only area where I'm a little concerned is the dress code. And there's a lot of feelings behind dress code, and so I wondered if rather than using this space and time to talk about the specific concerns with the dress code, if we could table that for a policy meeting, or if we could, if it made more sense for the committee to talk about it tonight, or at least for me to bring up my concerns about the dress code tonight.
I think it would make sense to bring up some of your concerns, while also, I agree with you that the best next step here is not to hold back the
I don't want
handbook.
to, right, because most of the handbook is.
But to note that this is something that is important to the committee that is reviewed at an upcoming policy meeting. I also had a couple questions about the dress code, so I welcome you to review yours.
So there was a minor change to the dress code that's in here, and that is we removed pajamas shall not be worn except for school activities approved by the principal, so that's no longer in there, which is important to know. But some of the questions that I have about dress code is, so dress codes have been the source of discrimination for a very long time in lots of different industries and public institutions. And so when I specifically look at the law and what the law says about student dress code, and I know I printed it off somewhere, I was prepared. So, Chapter 71, Section E3, school officials shall not abridge the rights of students as to personal dress and appearance except if such officials determine that such personal dress and appearance violate reasonable standards of health, safety, and cleanliness. It also goes on in Chapter 71, Section 82, actually that came before it. No expression made by students in the exercise of such rights shall be deemed to be an expression of the school policy, and no school official shall be held responsible in any civil or criminal action for any expression made or published by the students. Talks about their right to express their views through speech and symbols, to write, publish, and disseminate their views, to assemble peacefully on school property. And then Dr. Cassavant and I and a couple of other committee members spoke briefly about the challenge of not infringing on a student's right to free speech but also not creating an unsafe environment for students, which is almost impossible for those two things to exist. And we talked about how do you handle dress code violations, and basically personal biases and how all of it comes together, how difficult it is to create and implement and then follow through on a dress code. One of the issues that I have is in the dress code it says, if in their judgment your teacher team feels that your clothing is not appropriate, you will be referred to school leadership. Not appropriate is subjective, very subjective language, which sort of leaves it to each individual person to decide what is and isn't appropriate, and then you lack consistency in how the dress code is implemented, how infractions are perceived and followed through on. Is the staff trained on how to handle dress code violations, how to talk to students about clothing that violates the dress code?
I'm sorry.
That's, I
I know there was-
I just have so many, that's why I'm wondering if this is more appropriate for a later time. I have so many, we talked about disruptions in the classroom and how we're constantly, as educators and the school committee looking to minimize disruptions, but we almost anticipate the disruption and create rules and policy of disruptions we anticipate, but will they ever happen? It's pretty difficult sometimes to create a disruption that would cause a student to have to change their clothing. And so we need to be careful when we're creating rules and policy that we're not violating the student's right to expression because we anticipate there could be a problem.
I think these are all really excellent points and really good points to bring back to policy for discussion. Again, I appreciate that, if we're going to move this forward, to keep the school moving forward, but, this is actually quite prevalent in the news at the moment for Massachusetts. There is an active discussion around a student's right to wear specific clothing, so I think it's timely and relevant and worthy of further time and attention. I did have a specific piece of feedback related to one of the changes that was made, if you are done sort of
Yes.
overviewing. So for dress code, since we're on that topic, my question was, you struck out kerchiefs, but did not strike out bandanas.
I was going to ask about that as well.
Conversation about these.
And so,
And the reality is, we felt like kerchiefs was probably not a recognized term with our students.
Yes.
It's not a term that we use very often, so it was struck,
okay.
the need for that word.
That's what I wanted to clarify, because if kerchiefs were allowed and bandanas were not, that was what I was like, I can argue with you as to that a bandana is a kerchief, so.
This, Madam Chair, has taken way too much of our collective space. I'm talking about the administrative
Yeah.
team. And so I was told by my mother that a kerchief was very specific, and that and she went into this long story, which I won't bore you with. I was bored with it, thankfully. So, for our edification, those were back in the 50s and such, and I'm being serious, and so we just decided that it was all the same. And so we took the bold move into.
Okay,
to do
so
that.
I just wanted to clarify that we are not indeed saying that kerchiefs are now allowed.
No.
We are making a language change because we
Yes.
are saying that bandanas is all
Yes.
encompassing. Thank you. I will
There are a
not,
few definitions.
we will save,
Yes, yes, right.
we'll save the rest of dress code feedback for another day. Was there another area you wished to discuss tonight?
The only other question I had was there, and it's towards the back, it was in the, I think it was in like an absences section, where it talked about when the students return, checking Google Classroom for their assignment. It just made me wonder if all teachers are required to post their assignment daily on Google Classroom.
Not required,
Okay.
but often allow students.
So that's standard. Okay, I had just, okay, thank you.
One of the questions I had was related to the rules around public displays of affection, which I think we can all agree that anything of a nature that is sexual would be inappropriate, kissing, etc. And so I use that word specifically and intentionally. What I observed across the different schools was that we have different rules across the different schools. For example, hugging at the elementary school, I would even go so far as to say is encouraged because those kids hug all the time and they hug every teacher they can connect with, etc. And then suddenly in middle school, hugging is not allowed. Hugging is one of the public displays of affection that is ruled out, as is hand-holding. And then in high school, hand-holding is allowed in the hallways. Same building, different sets of rules for different students. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all about age-appropriate, specific rules. I understand that. But I will tell you, as a parent and as a school committee member, I am concerned about kids coming from 4th grade elementary, where they are allowed to hug each other, to suddenly being told that a form of touching, which is not sexual and is appropriate for comforting or greeting, is suddenly banned in our handbook. And I will tell you, I don't understand how that relates to a positive school learning environment.
Madam Chair, if I may, so you have unearthed the biggest dilemma in education that we face, right? That as a former middle school principal, vice principal, teacher, at one point, I will tell you that it's interesting, right? Depending. A touch can go too far. Not every hug is a good hug. I can just literally go through, I can remember all of these things that we would say. And so, but you're absolutely correct about the fact that you come from the elementary. Yeah, I was, like, well, I was just punching or grabbing him. Well, that's still not allowed, and so
Yeah.
there's developmental at the kindergarten level. So it really does get into a lot of different things. We have a lot of trouble defining a public displays of affection, and it is. But I will say that the data, though, interestingly, from the middle school, is striking in terms of the number of incidences that we have had before implementing, and again, I don't want to call it the no-touch policy. I don't recall exactly what it's referred to as at the middle school level, but the number of behavioral incidents in terms of anybody coming in contact with each other has dramatically dropped. Okay, that's good feedback. The other part of it is that we are human beings, and we can get into all of the fact that we crave not only attention but affection and appropriate. It's important to treat, or to teach appropriate touch and all those types of things. So, I think that we struggle with it as much as we struggle with it every day because we have to actually enforce it. Okay, and it's hard to enforce, quite frankly, because of all the things I've just mentioned and much more. It's interesting to, I'm smiling because you're absolutely 100% correct. I went down the elementary, they're like, oh my God, like, I'm trying to go through and it's just how it's very natural up at the middle school, it's different in the high school, it's different, sir. It's either all or none, I think, sometimes, and I don't know that this is the public display of affection is the right venue for all or nothing, but I don't know though what the happy medium is, quite frankly. So I think that's what we struggle with. I'll just be honest. Yeah.
I did check.
Yeah.
building, and teach those students as part of that whole process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those are the processes we provide for establishing these buildings, through that process too, which is not from the government.
Okay.
So I do think there's work for us to as a administrative team, now that that piece has been rolled out and put in place, to now revisit the language here, because there likely does need to be a look at this. That was not a section that we spent a lot of time on, our priorities.
Understood.
We're not there,
Mhm.
we're unhappy again this year, and frankly, our time was, our administrative team was here on Friday, really unhappy with the very good process. But we did not.
That wasn't one that came up specifically, yeah. It was in that middle school section where there was a lot
Right.
of updates, which is why I happened to notice
Mhm.
it. I did, as a data point, happen to check local school districts. We're a little unique in that particular wording, I will say.
Mhm.
Most school districts just sort of have a blanket statement about kissing and anything beyond kissing, that is inappropriate. They do not cover typically things like hand-holding or hugging. That's not forbidden in their handbooks. And I went to a Catholic school and we were allowed to hug and handhold, so. And I had dances where nuns were yelling at us to leave room for the Holy Spirit, so. Trust me. It's a full spectrum, and I do understand and appreciate that, those behaviors are going downhill, but I also think there's value in teaching students how to say what their comfort level with being touched, because the reality is, I will tell you, in the workplace, there are people that greet with a handshake, and there are people that greet with a hug, and then I work for a French company, so there are people that greet with kisses, cheek kisses, yep. And as an adult, it is essential that you have to learn how to communicate what your comfort level is with a greeting, because there are people who do not like to be hugged, and they have to learn to communicate that, and there are people that are huggers who have to learn to communicate, I'm a hugger, please tell me your comfort level. And so I realized that at that age level, that may be a difficult lesson to put out there, but it is also an important one, and we are preparing students for the real world. But again, not something I would, stop approval for, just something that I would appreciate if we can have eyes on, because that's an odd one, no hugging in a handbook. Thank you.
It also, to speak to what you were saying, Molly, under the shared expectation section, it clearly states what the students' responsibilities are, and that first bullet point is respect other people and their property. So the idea, I don't want you to touch me, or, yes, it's in the middle school section, and so, I think that falls nicely under there.
Any other comments on the handbook from other school committee members? I do want to make sure we're leaving space for everyone to feel that they've been heard.
Then I'm talking about.
We'll own it. Okay. So, I think we've had enough discussion, so at this moment. So I would entertain a motion to approve the 2023-2024 student handbook and the bullying prevention and intervention plan as presented. So moved.
Second.
So, not taking out the dress code for now, can we approve?
So I think, all right, so we have a motion by Heather and a second by Hank, and now for discussion. So I think what was stated is that, and correct me if I understood incorrectly, that we're going to refer this for further consideration to policy, but not hold up the approval so that it can be published and distributed in
Right.
time for the school year.
Can we approve the handbook minus the dress code?
So what would your expectation be? That we remove the dress code section, but approve the rest, and the rest would be disseminated? I guess that's what I'm looking for, is what does that alternative look like? I understand.
Okay, so we can't not have a dress code, so I guess the only option is to approve it with the expectation of discussing it. I don't know if we set a deadline, or we,
The pronouns can absolutely be changed. That is just, when I say
Yeah, oh, that was
grammatical,
completely- that
we
was
can.
separate. That was
I know, I just want to make sure that there are definitely some
That's
changes
easy.
we can absolutely make that
Right.
have been listed. If we're talking about you're the school committee, so, this is your decision. I'm simply saying that to make a fundamental change to anything at this point, there's no other way to say it. We would have to, the committee would have to commit itself, honestly, to several, I don't know how long it would take. We would have to get input. I don't know how to go forward. You can't go forward without a dress code. Yeah, I would,
Right.
I would ask that. But to make these changes, I think we can start with that right away. I don't know, whatever.
Dr. Casavant, what would be a conducive amount of time that you would need in order to print these, and I'm going to put you to that number?
Yeah, here's the great news. We don't print anything any longer.
Okay.
They're all electronic.
What would be a conducive amount of time that you would like to post this to the community so that way they can read their student handbook?
Well, in terms of, honestly, when we start pushing out everything in the district, like everything, parents, as they know, must look and sign off on the, review the handbook, et cetera.
August 1.
August
So
1.
I move that we hold this till next month so that we can.
At the moment, there is not necessarily a plan for a meeting next month, so we could certainly have a special meeting if we needed to.
Rather than hold up the process, could we approve the handbook as is and work to create, bring the dress code to the policy committee, but possibly work to create a specific dress code committee that involves all stakeholders over a period of time, so we're not rushing, talking about gathering feedback and data from all stakeholders, because ultimately I have my own personal feelings as everybody else, my own biases. Really what's important is that we're hearing from parents and educators and students regarding the dress code as is, so that we can work to create something that the district, that the families consider equitable. Yes, it is the most important part of this.
I would suggest also just running it through the equity committee as well, or whatever.
That's me and Molly. That's right. And staff, yep.
So I like that.
That sound okay?
Yeah, so we bring this to the equity committee because that does have a good representation from different groups within the community, so that they can review this and come back with a recommendation. And then because it is electronic, should we need to release an update, we could have that discussion. Okay. Okay.
Jen, can I just ask a point of clarification? So for the equity committee, it would be September or October? And is that okay with Danielle?
Yeah, ideally, we want to get it done as soon as possible, but you don't want to rush something that is important.
Right.
We want to make sure we have as much feedback as right. It's such a hot topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
There's a lot of variation that we're seeing.
And to that point, and they filed, I think it was yesterday, in that particular case, and we all get notifications, but from our individual attorneys for the districts, and they are all sitting back waiting for this to run its way through court, quite frankly, because it will, one way or another, probably affect all of it, like everybody's dress code, potentially, right? Because it's a First Amendment issue as it relates to, right, dress code or garments that are worn in schools, right? That's what the issue is. So I'm not waiting forever. We don't have to. That's not what I'm saying. But we would definitely it behoove us to see how that all turns. I think in the very near future, which we think is going to move fairly quickly.
We also would want to consider data regarding the demographics of those who have been coded for dress code? You know, looking for trends. Are we seeing that one gender is
Sure.
you know, held accountable more than others, or
Yeah.
different cultures and races? Want to make sure, because if that's the case, then there's something wrong with the dress code, and so there's a lot that needs to go into it. We don't need to rush it.
Thank you. So we still have a motion on the table. We have, and any further discussion before we move to vote? Okay. So all in favor of approving the student handbook and bullying prevention and intervention plan as presented? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Okay. So one abstention, and I say yes, so the rest were yeses. All right, and thank you. It's an important discussion to bring up, and I appreciate that, you know, we're gonna take the time and attention it deserves, and also give new members, the time to read the rather lengthy, handbook and get acquainted with some of the policies. Okay, moving on to a faster topic, as long as you don't make me read the entire list of tech surplus items. But we do have a number of surplus items. If you open that up, you will see why I'm not going to read it. So Susan, do you want to just give a summary of exactly what this
Yeah,
is?
every year at the end of the school year, the tech guys go through and go through all of our equipment and determine stuff that is unusable, not working, and we put it up for surplus. This is all to be thrown out. We have a place that we recycle them with. So it's not something that we even offer to the towns because it's not working equipment. It's just stuff goes down for technology purposes.
All right. So I would entertain a motion to surplus the items as presented.
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Sean and a second by Hank. Any discussion? Any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, so that was unanimous. Okay. So this next item is just for information. So when, in the latest district votes, Phillipston and Templeton both vote for school committee members. We did not end up filling one of the spaces for Phillipston, so we do need to post that position as per our policy. And so I see, Susan, you've attached a letter here, and so what I'm thinking is understanding, like, so I'll go into a little bit about July. So typically we don't have a July meeting. There's so many vacations and things that it's hard to get a quorum. That said, we always reserve the right to call a meeting should there be an important piece of business that needs to occur. So it's very much, you know, if we need a meeting, we have a meeting. If we don't need a meeting, we wait until August. And frankly, most of the updates for the school committee come around the August timeframe. There's not a lot to talk about in July unless there's a critical and important piece. And so what I would recommend is that, Susan, you update this so that we do interviews during our scheduled meeting in August. And that we get this put out there so that we can, you know, accept letters at any time prior to that, and then schedule interviews for that August meeting. Any questions about that?
Just where will we post it? Or what, where typically we post
Typically, I
it?
put it in the newspaper, put it at home learning news, and we put it on Facebook as well.
Thank
And the
you.
website.
So, if there's anyone from Phillipston here who would like to sit at this fine table with these fine folks, we are looking for applicants. Not that I'm looking at anyone in particular in the audience who might live in Phillipston. All right, moving on to the next item, the MASC and MASS joint conference. So this is actually hot off the presses. I had this on here because usually there's things up prior to now, but they actually only thank you, Danielle, for giving me the heads up, posted to their website about the conference. So the main dates for the conference are Wednesday, November 8th through Friday, November 10th. This is a really excellent opportunity for us to network, discuss. Maybe dress code is something that could be brought, and doing some networking and discovering what other districts are doing. For example, they do have an early bird deadline, which they did announce of July 15th. That is a cost savings of $120 per person, so it is pretty significant. Susan, if it would be all right if we just coordinate with you as we've done.
Email me if you're interested in going, the days that you want to go, and then coordinate that.
Sign me up, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm a yes as well. I would say, Sean, I know you haven't had a chance to attend before. Sean, I think you have.
I didn't,
You
no.
have a
I
hard
couldn't
time
because
with
of work.
scheduling, but it is a really excellent
I
opportunity
did reach out to Susan, yeah, I just
Yeah,
need
we
more
did.
specifics about it all, really.
Right, now,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll give you, we can talk about it
Yeah,
now.
that'd be great.
Perfect.
But I would love to go.
So it's a good opportunity to network, to meet folks from other school committees, to meet other superintendents. It also has a number of really excellent. Yes, it can.
You
it
take
can.
certain sections.
Yeah.
So encourage everyone to have a look and see if that's something you'd be interested in. Okay, out-of-state field trip. We have a very important, very timely request for an out-of-state field trip for tomorrow. I did try to give everybody a heads up to get any questions into Susan. So were there any questions that came in? No, okay. So in that interest, I would entertain a motion to approve the 6th grade out-of-state field trip to Canopy Lake on June 15th, 2023 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Danielle and a second by Shauna. Any questions or comments?
The thoroughness of this document is pretty amazing.
Madam Chair, you can tell that the person who wrote every word of it is literally hanging on your every word, and so.
The lesson plans that are with
I
it.
have to, by state.
Who knew that?
So
That
wonderful.
we honestly, we were looking to do a field trip at first early on, and we talked about it, and then we came together about a month ago. And I was sitting at the school team last month, and then
Well, and to that point, how terrible would we be? We said no. How many 6th graders do we have that would be really mad at us right now? So.
So would I.
We'd have a number of folks going into hiding, all right.
Yeah.
Well, in that interest, I would say we move to a vote, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, that is unanimous. So 6th grade,
Have
enjoy
fun.
your field trip.
Text has just gone out.
Okay. There's smoke signals going
Oh,
off
God.
somewhere saying the
Yeah.
field trip is approved.
No, that's them putting their torches.
Send us videos
Yeah.
of the roller coasters.
So, all right. So we do actually have, under other items not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours before the meeting, we do actually have a topic. So Dr. Cassavant, I will send this over to you to talk about students from Spain.
Yes, so Ms. Jessica Medalcott, she is our Spanish teacher for the middle school. She is been involved, I believe, with a trip. I don't want to call it a exchange program. It's called a homestay. Okay, so it's in conjunction with, through a company, but with school districts in Spain. And so what happens for 19 days, children from Spain will come to Templeton and Phillipston. They will have to get host families, et cetera. But the only involvement that the district will have is that it'll be the dropping off point or meeting point for host families and the departure, day when they get back on the bus, because they then go to New York to continue. But they follow the students that their host family for 2 days in school, day 11 and day 15. It's very, very detailed. It's actually September 11th, Monday, September 11th, and Friday, September 15th, that they follow their host family student. I want to make sure that the committee was aware of it. There is, it falls within our purview to have visitors if we so chose, and this is different than just somebody coming, can I follow for a day? This is an actual educational program. Our kids benefit. Of course, kids from Spain benefit. So I guess, for your consideration and however, in whatever form, is that I'm asking the committee to, because they have to actually get this moving quickly, right? Because they have to get host families, and then they have to let the company know that we're, it's a go. So I'm asking the committee to support this. I think it's a fantastic idea. They will be with us for just 2 days following, and it'll be at the middle school level. And we've done that. We have done this before in various other ways.
Is there any cost impact to the district?
None. Zero.
Zero, okay. And so when we spoke quickly, you indicated that we might need to vote, but I'm wondering, what are we voting on?
Well, I went and checked.
Other than just giving verbal
Yeah.
support.
I just wanted to make sure that, just in case you wanted to vote, please do. But yeah, in terms of the purview of the building principals, et cetera, they certainly can allow a visitor and under special circumstances. These are children; they don't need to be courted. They will not be staffed. So it's not like it's something that we would need to really manage, quite frankly.
So I guess I will turn to the committee. I don't know that there's anything to vote on based on what's under our purview, but are there any questions or concerns that anyone would like to raise in relation to the program? Because otherwise, I would say that this is up to the administration and the school itself to manage. But it does sound like a pretty fantastic opportunity for students, both our students to benefit from these visitors, as well as those students to get some time here.
I just wanted to ask, did we know how many students? You might have said,
I
but
do not.
didn't. Oh, okay.
I really on it. I want to say that it may just boil down to how many host families
Right.
are able to participate. So I don't believe that we'll be
Inundated.
overwhelmed
Yeah.
by our friends from Spain. I don't, but we'll be able to handle it one way or another either way.
All right. So I'd say you have general support, though no vote is necessary. Okay. So moving into the superintendent report, I will hand it over to you, Dr. Cassavant, to lead us through.
Thank you. I'll just go through the items that have existed on the agenda throughout the year. I don't need to really talk about the school safety grant any longer. I think I've done that. We've done that. We're done. And we are still going to, beyond the grant, we're still going to add some more cameras, et cetera. There's some blind spots that we have, but everything is working very well, and all things good. We did, in May, if I didn't, or whatever the timing was, we had another drill in terms of Alice, but just with staff during a half-day PD. It went exceptionally well. The feedback was outstanding. We call it table talk, and we went through scenarios. Officer Fliss did a fantastic job, and our trainers did a great job. Next year, meaning next school year, we will in fact have a drill with staff, students, etc. More to come with that, but we completed our objective of doing 2 of those with staff, and so it was very well received. School choice and enrollment update. Well, it's June. So we sit at 1,490 students. We never dipped below 1,486 students at any time. If I were to look over the continuum, that is, well, we've already said that it's the highest we've had in several years. And if I understand it correctly, kindergarten registration went extremely well, and there were more students than they anticipated. So you never know with kindergarten. We talk about this a lot until they actually are here with us. But the number of kids who came to be screened was more than I think we anticipated. So more to come on that as we move forward. You know, let's see, make sure school safety is okay. Graduation, you know, and Lions and crew, fantastic. I often, when someone asks me how graduation went, I said it's almost, you know, it's just at that hype level that you're like, I don't know if this is really a graduation or is it, you know, a barbecue. But it's just really exciting, and of course, if you've seen it for the first time, you know, you have people just so happy, and again, cowbells, we had beach balls, we had horns. I mean, you know, it was absolutely great, and again, it was tasteful, but very, very, just very well done by Ann and her crew, and we had 3 people come back unsolicited from 3 different graduations locally. Now, to be fair, some of the districts that they went to the graduations graduate far more many kids than we do. All right, 200, 300. But so it's really you can't be there all day or all night. Every one of them said that that they didn't really feel like there was a sense of pride. It was more kind of like we have to get this done, and they really thought that it was personal. And it was, you know, it just you know, it's just being Gansett. So that's a great bit of feedback. Not only, you know, to me, that's fantastic, but to the folks who put this on every single year. So I want to make sure I shared that with you, because that's what it's all about family.
It was
and
special.
It's special.
Yeah,
it's special. Yeah.
There's no other way to describe
Right.
it. It was special.
Right. So it was good. So,
Dr. Caspian,
yes.
if I can just interrupt you to say.
Sure.
A takeaway. It was my first time at graduation, and it was wonderful. But so many of those students knew you, like hugging you,
Infamous.
shaking your hand.
Yeah.
I mean, I never knew my superintendent.
Yeah.
So just to see that dynamic, student after student, and then go on to hug Anne. I mean,
Oh, they love her. I mean,
the
yeah.
emotion
They just
from
know
these
me.
students,
Yeah.
that was striking to me. So it just, for me, it showed that you are in the classroom. You see these kids. They know you. You're not just a name. And I thought that was important.
And I appreciate that. There are kids
It's
here.
true.
They don't see me all the time. Well, let's put it this way. They don't see me as much as I would like to be seen. I don't get out as much
But
as I would like.
they weren't afraid of
Yeah.
you. Like,
No, yeah. We try to connect as much as possible, especially by the time they're
You
seniors.
could see it.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
And thank you. So
It's true.
it's the only part of the job it's the part of the job that if it went away, I'd quit.
I mean, I never
Because,
wanted to.
no, I mean that. I wouldn't work in a large district. If I cannot know the students, or at least have the opportunity, or at least on just a very surface level, it's just not worth doing. And so
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and I do. I enjoy them all, and give whatever little time that they give me, I enjoy. So, but thank
I think
you.
I never wanted to hug my superintendent
Yeah,
or
well.
my class advisors. I never felt comfortable.
I obviously broke the PDA, depending on what
Yeah, I was
school it
gonna
is,
say.
so I didn't want to tell.
You said it,
All
not
right,
me.
all right. Yeah, so.
And like you
Right.
and
I've been through this with my own kids, now I deliver vicariously for
Yeah.
people, and I can spoil their kids and send them home.
He's right. That's right.
I mean, it was, I
Right.
mean, you know, you're in this every single day, and I just, you know,
Yeah.
hear about all that goes on. And so it was just striking to me to just sit there. And I shared that with Molly right after, because it was just so overwhelming. So, yeah. I mean, you know, we should have tissues. Like, I mean,
No.
you and Stacy, you know, Stacy just,
It's great,
Great
and
job.
we appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
This is a special place, and we've talked about that a lot. We talked about Representative Zlotnick's $50,000 that hopefully is earmarked and that we'll actually receive. And but, you know, he was kind enough to really push that through this year, and again, it's for HVAC. So we went back to the HVAC report, we went to, you know, that was done with the air quality and the airflow, if you remember from gosh, or actually during COVID. And the next largest, I guess, room or area to tackle is the library. And so why, I won't go through the boring things about pneumatics and, you know, and how these things just run. There's no way to shut them off. If you do, you'll freeze, you turn them on, you boil. Okay, so we've gone through that. So what this, we believe, we still have to finish up a few things, but what I'd like to do with this money is to use our, Mike Netto, who's done all fantastic work with our HVAC systems throughout the years. We're hopeful to add in, dare I say, and Marie, air conditioning and a more sophisticated heating system in the library. We use the library a lot, and if you went into the library today, it was like maybe, you know, what the Mayflower was, you know, below deck. It's just, there's no ventilation. I mean, that's one of the things, it will just not run. So if the ventilation's working, but you have a lot of kids in there. So we're going to improve that space because we want to use that space more. And that's what our consultant has suggested, because that's the next largest area to do within the price, with the money that we have. Would the auditorium be, yes, that's a very large spot, but this will be the next big thing that we'll be able to do, and he's committed to getting us more money to do or fix all of the things that we're talking about with that initial report. So more to come on that. We'll see, to see how it all kind of fares out. But that's a big deal, I think, and good news. You know, I certainly didn't want to end on this. You know, I'm not done, because I know people have been sitting here for a bit. I do want to say, being in our last school committee meeting, that we have to say goodbye to Courtney Bashon, who's our assistant principal down in TES. Look, I could do an hour, honestly, about how wonderful she is. She is our, well, currently, she is our ranking and most senior administrator. I think she's been here 5 years, or a little over that, or some change. And so she travels quite a distance, and her move is absolutely the reason why folks should do those type of things, because her kids are older. She travels over an hour, and it's not even a good commute. It's a terrible commute when she does, but she's done it, you know, faithfully. And it's time. Her kids are older, and they snatched her right up down in her neck of the woods, which doesn't surprise me. So we're going to miss her, but I will tell you that we're going to miss what she brought to the entire team. And I know that I speak for the team. We've learned a lot from Courtney, honestly, and we've been very lucky to have had her here for so long. She's really impacted a lot of adults and kids, quite frankly. So it's a goodbye. She says she doesn't want a big thing, so we're going to do something big. I don't know. We talked about safety and bullying, kind of, sort of through the handbook, but we just secured a training with our attorney, right? What day? Yeah.
For
Early August. So they're going to come out, and he's going to come out and train the administrative staff, which we need PD, obviously, like everyone else. And so it'll be a good opportunity for the administrative staff to, you know, get an up-to-date, you know, kind of what's what, with both just safety overall, bullying, the handbook, et cetera. So it's a good opportunity, and discipline procedures, et cetera, because these things have changed, of course, as we just talked about. All right. 2 meetings ago, I believe, I made a comment that one of the things that we need, as we have done, I think we were talking about all the changes we've done in this community, to the district, and hopefully all of them have been good. But it's, you know, we've done a lot, and one of the things I think that folks maybe took it as kind of an off comment, but I said the next real big one of the next big steps is the arts program, specifically the high school music program. The numbers have not been good. Now, we've done a lot of research on this. Okay, so why are the numbers not good? Well, first off, one of the things is that we don't, when you get past the 8th grade, and you start wanting to take Project Lead the Way classes, these are one-off classes. There's one. We have, I forget how many total classes there are now. There'll be 12, 9, and there are 9 classes, and ultimately, this is just one, but I want to explain this out. So they only can happen at certain times because we don't have we don't have several sections of the same thing. We cannot offer that. So one of the things that we realize is that when kids, they don't have an option. So in other words, it's either like literally as one of the guidance counselors told me today, it's either like Project Lead the Way, early college, right, depending on what grade, what you're doing, or sometimes band. And they make the decision that they make. So there's certainly one, I will call this, and the staff know when I start talking about mechanical issues, right? So programmatically, there's only so much that we can do. And by the way, every high school is up against these type of things. Just in general, you can only offer so much, and you can only have so many people offering what you have. All right. So there's that. The other reasons, that's the mechanical reason. So, okay, that's something that we can look at and try to improve somehow. Depending, anecdotally, why the music program has not improved or has dropped or has fallen off, I'd use whatever comment, whatever way that you'd like, is that ranging from that we did, in fact, several years ago, prior to, I think, just before COVID, we did not, through a retirement, we did not fill a music teacher at the middle school. So we went from 2 to 1 there, right? Now this, again, this is just in my time frame. I'm sure that there are a lot of other things prior. 2, it's been noted a lot, right, that we do not offer lessons during the school day. That was really very early on in my tenure here, I don't know, probably 16, 17, in that area. I don't know. That call was made by me. It was a time on learning issue, and quite frankly, not to throw anybody under the bus, it is what it is. Classroom teachers were concerned that we were pulling kids during crucial times, and it just became untenable. All right. COVID has been, named, as obviously when you talk to other districts, their band programs, their music programs have dipped, if not, for lack of a better word. And then, depending on who you speak to, I won't go into all of it, obviously, because it's not for public consumption, but, depending on what we're offering, who's offering what, et cetera. I've been here 7 years. As of July 1, I'll end my 7th year. We have hired 5 music teachers at the high school. I will say this because I've said it a lot in the last couple days. I've never said no. And I'm going to get to that in a second. If it was a new person people needed, and we did it. If it was a person that was over budget, but they had a lot of experience, we did it. If it was a band person, we did it. If it was we just lucked. And a lot of different things happened, not everyone's fault, but we tried a lot of different things. So this year, meaning this year, it is absolutely public knowledge at this point that I have transferred Mr. Asal up to the high school. Why? He represents, as far as I'm concerned, one of the ways that we can resurrect the program itself. He knows every musician between 5th grade, current, and 11th grade. So he has that already built-in knowledge. Being new automatically puts you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. It adds to the, to slowing of the process. I don't believe that we can improve the process. I don't think we can wait for that. Now, I've used band only in terms of discussion, right? When I've said somebody who's band, it is widely known that when people applied for the job at the high school, they were told, and I know this because I talked to these people, is that they were told that they had to teach marching band. That was one of the requirements. Okay. Now, that met, depending on who they were, joy or not. Okay, apparently. I want to say that, to remind everyone, and everyone knows this, but the marching band is a stipended position. It is not, it's a stipended position. It's just like any other stipended position we have across the board. So that, first off, is an expectation that's not realistic. The-
Can you describe what a stipend position
A
is
stipend
before
position
you go
is
on?
additional. So I'm going to use, well, Ann, currently, right now, is filming us. And she is in a stipended position. It's above and beyond her workday, right? And it's her job. So she is receiving money to do this, all right? I'm not trying to play, I'm just really boiling it. It's extra, right? According to the contracts, let me just get through that, is that, you know, this is written well before me, is the NDEA has first dibs at all stipends, although we did add the language this year that they have to be, you have to be qualified. It doesn't matter, you know, I am not going to, you know, teach or coach basketball, right? I can tell you right now, right? So I'm not qualified, although, you know, I'm breathing, so maybe I could, you know, whatever. The minimum requirement is met. And I think what happened a lot of times is that, so it's the stipended position. Some love it, some didn't. We add 2 other positions. I'll call it a staff. I think there's a, oh gosh, I don't know. I think there's, Ann, I'm sorry, can you remember the 2 of them, please? Percussion, yeah. Color guard. Right, I think that's it. So, okay. So what's happened is that, okay, there's been this expectation that that person had to do that. I'm going to tell you what the expectation is, and I know, and certainly I've heard a lot over the last 48 hours. My expectation is that Mr. Sal goes in and starts to improve the musicality of the program, right? I'm going to call it the performance band or whatever, the program itself, okay? Marching band, I will say to you, you hear it from me, is not my priority right now. And I'm going to get to some numbers in a sec. Because Lord knows that's one thing, but you have to have some things to back it up. We are not filling, and I've given a bunch of reasons why people are not able to take music, because sometimes they're forced with this decision. You know, Project Lead the Way, this or so that's not their fault, right? Kids' fault. It just is what it is. So when I look at the marching band, I also know that just like a lot of things, and I'll use athletics, is that athletics and the band, in those terms, your plays, etc., are the front porch of your house. Okay, it's what everybody sees. So just whatever inside house, but that you look at a front porch and it's beautiful, right? So it's important, right, that your porch looks good. And that's not my wish I came up with that, but it's something that I've borrowed over the years. The thing, what's happening is that in any situation, that we're looked at numbers and we're looking at these declines and we're not able to fill a lot of the music. Every teacher teaches 5 at the high school, all right? We're having trouble filling, maybe not to the issues, it's not their issue maybe, but 5 music, okay? So there's that I've got to say that I've got to just stop for a second and say, I'm more concerned about that. I want to at least try to improve our ability to teach music, to play music, whatever, just in general, because that's what is part of the curriculum. The marching band is not, all right? So I have said that I am considering, and I wrote to the school committee last Friday night, that I am considering pausing marching band this year. Why? Well, there are 7 students above the 9th grade who are signed up for concert band. And there are 22 8th graders who are signed up currently for marching band. Concert band, sorry, I'm going to do that a lot, sorry. Concert band. I'm like, well, gee, that sounds like a lot. Traditionally, and speaking with guidance today, many of them drop out, quite a bit, drop out of concert band, okay? There is no mechanism, and I'm going to get to the mechanism here in a second, we've created the mechanism, to really know who is going to be part of marching band. So there are 2 things here that I want to just quickly get to. 1, we're going to need to find a marching band stipended position. Mr. Sal is not going to take it. and it's okay. I'm gonna let him, that's okay. That's not his primary role. It's a stipend position, okay? So, it has to go a couple more days as we move through the, for the remainder of the week. It's a stipend position. We have, I don't know how many stipend positions we have up. We have a lot of them, et cetera. Some get filled, some don't. What happens after the NDA, then other people can then be considered, okay? And we've done that a lot. So there's that situation we have currently right now. I want the focus to be on improving the music program. We cannot lose the music program at the high school. But if I only have so many few kids going through the program, I don't know what to do with that, with said person, right, or staff. All right, one. Two, so there's that situation, and I don't know, it is a bit foggy about exactly how many students are going to commit to marching band, right? So what's happened, what I've done in the background, and it'll be live tomorrow on our NRSD website. For those, if you, again, just to use it as a reference, on the athletics page, there is a sign-up button, toggle. So if anybody wants to, whatever they're going to join, soccer, cross-country, etc. I am putting one up for marching band. They don't have to pay anything yet or anything like that, but it is an extracurricular activity, so we do have, there will be fees assessed just like any other. But I'm not worried about that right now, because I want to know how many people are going to be committed to marching band. So there's these two pieces that, one, someone is going to have to come forward. And I say that, when I say someone's going to have to come forward, someone qualified is going to have to come forward. No one is just going to go out there and say, I'll do marching band. We're not going to allow that. That's not what it should happen. So that's really step one. Step two is we need to see how many kids are actually interested in doing concert band. Marching band, thank you. The concert band, though, just for the record, is, and that music program is my priority. And the feeder system that feeds that, okay, which is the middle school, which is a position that is currently open right now, right? It's been posted. So with that, though, I just want to make sure that I have received a ton of feedback on these decisions, on this, or just me just even contemplating this. One, I'm not going into personnel. I won't talk to about it. I'm appreciative of the people that you are presenting to me as possible answers, etc. I'm not talking about personnel. I will never talk about personnel. I appreciate the feedback, but I'm not talking about who. That's one, okay? I understand there's a lot of passion about this. I'm going to say that it's the 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 folks who do a lot of work. I'm going to call them boosters. Of course, they're boosters if they're helpful. I don't know if there's they're actual boosters. They have a shirt or whatever. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that more work is going to have to be done on the outside too, right? We're going to have to figure we're going to have a lot to figure out. So we have put a call into the 2 people that I know who know the arts better, who've been kind of, been around a while, and they're retired, and so I want to meet with them to gain some feedback or some sage advice as well. I don't want the marching band to go away. What I want is for the musicality to increase, to become better, right? And then, hopefully we can put more kids out there. I spoke to the parent about the student today, because I want to make sure I give him props. We had 1 horn in the band, roughly, right, last year. He was phenomenal. Phenomenal. And he knows I said it, Mom knows I said it, other people know I said it. We need more, right? And so I know that. I don't know much, but I know that. And speaking with the people I've spoken to, we need more. Do we have some in the 8th grade? Maybe. I don't know. I need to see if they're going to stay in the concert, the concert band. I got to see if they're going to, and then are they going to then, does that translate automatically into marching band? Okay. Someone asked me, you'd never do this in sports. If this was a sport, you'd never do that. That's not true. We had 23 very willing participants in indoor track last year. We did not have indoor track last year. Why? We didn't have a coach. So, I can literally give you 12 more examples in which we don't have JV teams, because I can literally we do it when it comes to a stipended position, we do it all the time. Now, I've talked about the two biggies. There are other stipended positions, and again, I don't want to list them all, that if they don't have, a lot of participation, we don't run it. Why? Because it just, first off, isn't cost effective, and if you're only having 2 kids in the chess club, which I would love the chess club, that's great, but 2 kids are not enough to, does a club make? And there's a lot of different clubs, and, I'm not gonna go club by club by club. So I think that what I want folks to know, what I want the committee to know, is that I am committed to this music program, to the arts program in general. Right now, it's music. There's a lot of work to be done. We got a lot of hard decisions to make, I think. And, programmatically, we're trying to think very differently with very few, with just enough staff. And I don't know how to increase it. I don't know how to increase that necessarily. Yeah, we'd love another music teacher down at the middle school. We would love it. We'd love that person back. We would absolutely love it. We tried, and we just couldn't pull it off in terms of budgetary reasons, right? But we're going to keep trying. And so I know, but I'm not done talking to people. So I'm going to talk to people as long as I can, or as long as I can. But I promised a certain someone that before summer happened, I'm going to make a decision on this, so people know where they stand. So, Madam Chair, again, I'm open to any questions, obviously, about that, and we'll
So
expand.
what I want to do before I open it up to questions is just do a quick summary so that you
Yep.
can, if I'm not summarizing any of that correctly, you can adjust it. So what I'm hearing is that the music curriculum at the high school level needs some support, and that the support that you have identified that it needs is to move the middle school teacher up to the high school, due to those years of experience, to work on the music program as a whole as it relates to concert band, which I am understanding is a class. How am I doing so far?
So far, so good.
All right. And so the focus right now is on curriculum, on that concert band class. And because that is where the focus is, and that at this time, there isn't a person to fill that music band stipend position, that we are unsure as to how that particular program will proceed.
Right.
What I also heard from you is that the book is not closed yet, that you are seeking input from experienced members of the community who were part of this district in some capacity in the past, as well as, it sounds like you've received a good amount of public input related to the program. So focus is on the curriculum and the class, and getting those numbers back up through the various methods you discussed, with marching band being a question mark still and a stipended position. Okay. Anything critical that I missed in that recap? And I'm recapping that for a reason, because they are sort of two separate pieces.
You're right.
And so I want to make sure that that is understood. So, having recapped, is there anyone on school committee that has a question?
I have a lot of them, but I have a feeling eventually I'm going to draft and about all of this. I think my first question is, so I think I just need to understand what's happening first. So are we not replacing the band teacher in the middle school, or that
We
position
are.
is posted?
It's posted.
Okay. So I think my first question is, why wouldn't we look at, other than your argument is the relationship between that teachers and those students, which, okay, if that teacher has buy-in, I'm not here to judge that, you would know that better than us. But I guess my question is, why wouldn't we look at posting a high school position and try to get somebody who actually wants to take on the role of marketing?
So I'm going to just pause here for a moment, because as it relates to staffing, we have no input.
Sure. Just
Okay,
a question.
so I'm going to
Yeah.
allow
Yeah.
you
Sure.
to answer it should you wish to. However, this isn't an area where
No.
we
No.
typically ask questions or have input.
I think it's a valid question, and I think that that's probably the question I have answered actually the most, honestly, out of all the questions I've been asked. At some point, we're going to have to change what we've been doing. So we have hired, and again, I'm not going to go through each one of them. We've hired quite a few people whom were marching band, at least either they told us or they were actually marching band, aficionados, okay? For one reason or another, and I think a lot of it was stepping stone type of stuff, to be very candid, bird in hand. I got a job and now I'm just going to be candid with you. We've had some people move on, and it was very frustrating. And there's some people in this room who really bought into some folks, and for all the right reasons. And I think that they really did not, they didn't represent themselves well, meaning that they weren't very accurate in what their real goal was. Because everyone is asked, right?
People talk a lot.
Yeah. Will you be here for more than 3 years? Something, that kind of thing. And you betcha. This is where I want to live forever. And then not even, a full year, they're gone because they've got a better gig or something. And again, I don't want to get into all of that. But what I know is that Mr. Sal is literally the constant, right? So Mr. Salvador has been here for many years. He knows every kid that plays an instrument. He is the one constant. If I'm having trouble up at the high school, which I am, just if nothing else, retaining folks, right, keeping folks to do the job, then the one person I know who, as far as I know to this day, will be here, next year and beyond, and who is an accomplished, I'm going to say musician, but clearly can teach music. I think that is our best bet. I think a big part of being a teacher, as you know, case is that it's classroom management. It's just really knowing the things that you know. And I think that when you're a new teacher, you have to learn all those things. I don't think we have the time in that particular role any longer. Because if we drop any further in terms of our numbers, I don't know that I'll be able to even support having, given that we have 30 kids in history, how do I justify that eventually, in the end, where I can't even fill, say, 3 sections of music. All right, but again, there's a mechanical issue there too, so I don't want to just dump on that. So for me, I think that he represents the best opportunity to at least to help stabilize, and that's what we're trying to do, is stabilize the music program, get it back to its feet, and then of course push forward.
Go ahead.
I got a few more. I think a lot of it's more clarification for me.
I understand. Yeah.
So, I think, and he has expressed this, the music program is obviously important as he's going to concert with. But there are several students that I know that came from this high school that go to UMass for UMass Marching Band. There's just a lot of opportunities there that I think that you or the district may not be considering.
I think what I'm considering is to make sure that I put the very best person I can at that marching band position. That's number one, because that's supervision and that's teaching. Okay, so that supervision equals safety, all those things. That's number one. 2, that I need that person. It can't be. I think that where the fault was, and I don't know where this all went back. I don't know. But doing for whatever reason, it's just been very difficult to be able to do both, meaning maintain the music program at the high school and to grow, maintain, stable, whatever, the marching band. I don't know if that's personality based. I don't know that. I just know what has happened. And so what I know is then, if it's a stipended position, and it is, that I'm hopeful that someone qualified will take that on, and that way we can focus, I guess, inside the walls, right? So the music program itself. I don't think that it's right now, I don't think that we should marry the two just exclusively. I don't. There's a lot of work to be done, and I think that that's going to take a lot of time.
So I have a quick statement before we move on. One of the things that Dr. Casavan and I have had some very
candid conversations about is, we are, as a committee, very passionate about making sure that the arts are supported through our district, and we have amazing opportunities through Project Lead the Way. I'll be honest, budgeting's a problem, and this is why you heard Dr. Casavan talk so passionately about, we have all these opportunities, all these meetings about budget, but we don't get folks from the towns there. And we really don't hear much feedback. And so it's important for us to get that during those seasons and leading up to it. You know, we're going to be encouraging, you know, looking for grants and doing all those special things that this district does so well, to try to find extra funds. But at the end of the day, there's also some funding questions to consider here, such as that middle school position, and that's really difficult to justify when we're missing a Spanish teacher. When we're, you know, at the TES level, you're looking at, you know, the very distinct need to improve ELA scores and MCAS scores in general. So, you know, I have a background in arts, and so I understand just how emotional this is, but I also want to, you know, put out there that we've got to get folks more involved in pushing for budget and talking to us about budget during our budget season, because, you know, there's impact.
So I guess I just don't understand, is it a personnel issue or is it a budget issue? Because he made it sound like it was a personnel issue and now you're bringing it to a budget issue.
I'm connecting it to a budget issue. So he was saying that there's a second middle school teacher that's missing. We've had other arts programs that haven't been funded. So I'm not connecting it to music specifically. In this particular case, the music program, as he stated, so I'm just going to repeat what he said, he's got a music program that he needs to stabilize, both in terms of numbers and in terms of curriculum, which is why an experienced person was moved into that role.
Sure.
So was that piece connected to budget? No. Is there a broader connection back to budget? Yes. And so, you know, that's where I'm advocating to folks, like, this is where we need people to get involved and to have their voices, so that not only can we fund the core curriculum pieces, but also be looking at arts, etc. Anything else? All right. My computer needs my password so that we. So our next item, just to keep us moving, is curriculum and instruction. So Molly, I will hand it over to you.
We, this year, just completed our first year of the early college program. I'm really excited to report out to you tonight that has gone incredibly well. this data does not represent growth data, it represents achievement level data. It's a percent that's used for meeting or exceeding the current benchmark for that grade for reading and math. And it is one snapshot, it's one moment in time. They're looking at a lot of different data in instruction. When we look at our math data, we are seeing our largest gains in our first and second grade, and then in our middle school grades across the board. So that's where we're seeing the greatest gains of the students being exceeding. And similar to what we saw at the beginning of the year, when we compare our end of the year data for reading and for math, generally speaking, all but one grade, we see our math data is generally higher than our reading data. And so for us, it's important that our focus on literacy is appropriate as we're moving forward. You'll notice there's no math data for kindergarten, and that's a reminder because our kindergarten students take the early literacy, which includes foundational math components. And so there's no math assessment separate for kindergarten. And so for us as we move forward, we're going to continue with our focus embedding literacy practices both in our school and superintendent and in our day-to-day practice. We have worked to embed some additional literacy focus in the curriculum for one of our unified arts classes that we're placing in the library over at CEX for next year. So we've purchased additional materials and we'll be revamping the curriculum with additional focus on literacy. In addition, at the middle school, we have refocused one of our classes to add a second literacy class for students here. That will include some data analysis and specific intervention planning support for digital students literacy. And then at the high school, I know I've shared this before, but we are, through some of our early college funds, we were able to provide after-school literacy tutoring programming. So we'll be exploring if we have funds available next year to continue that. As that program, the students who enrolled in that program or were selected and enrolled in that program, we saw some kids are really positive gains. So for us moving forward, that will be incremental focus areas to continue focusing on. And then at the administrative level, we are also focusing on how our observation and feedback for teachers can support the ongoing development of literacy skills across all not just in the reading class. So that's one focus across the professional development. And so moving forward, while we don't have academic coaches necessarily here in our district, we're looking for opportunities to provide that ongoing feedback and support. And please don't hear that as a value of it. It's really meant to be supported and coaching.
Quickly, we don't have any MCAS data back yet, right?
No, we'll be getting some preliminary data pretty quickly, but we won't have any data that we can publicly share or release likely before August.
Any questions for Molly about either early college or the end of year STAR assessment?
If you have questions after looking at this in more depth, please feel free to contact.
Subcommittee reports. Shauna, I'm gonna ask you if you can do a quick recap on academic and administrative, only because they've heard a lot from Danielle and I tonight.
I'll be honest, I'm not prepared.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. So
I would have to go through my notes. It'd have to be a few minutes.
That's okay. I put you on the spot. My apologies.
Totally did.
So she's calling me out. I like it. For academic and administrative, a lot of this discussion with academic was about upcoming STAR assessments and wrapping up MCAS. So nothing really new here, things we just covered. For administrative, there was actually a lengthy discussion around the dress code topic that's been coming up, as well as the handbook coming and some of the staffing changes that Dr. Cassavant already reviewed. I don't know which other committees have met, finance,
No.
facilities, no, policy.
I have on my calendar that we have a policy subcommittee meeting tomorrow, and I don't think that's right because we don't have an agenda posted.
So you're not
We
having
don't-
a
we
meeting
may not
tomorrow?
have a meeting
Our
tomorrow.
chair went and retired,
Yes,
and then we did not have our meeting after.
So I think one of the things that's gotten a little confusing is there was
Auto.
some auto repeated meetings set up. So they're still on Google Calendar, but not necessarily reflected in committees.
When we did meet last for policy, we did meet with Mariah about the concussion policy, and we kind of, tell me if I'm speaking out of turn, but we kind of gave her some food for thought, she gave us some food for thought, and kind of said, let's, see where we are, how much progress she makes, and meet back in September. That was like one of our bigger ones, and of course, now we hear there's more policies coming our way. But we are down a member as well.
So to that end, one of the things we wanted to talk about is typically subcommittees don't meet over the summer. There's just not enough topics or not enough people available. So they're usually suspended starting around the June timeframe, but certainly for July and August, and then they pick back up in the school year. So one of the things we did want to look at was, do we have the subcommittees that we need to have, or do we need to make some changes? And so I met with Dr. Cassavant and Molly to sort of review where are we with subcommittees, what does the school need, where does time and attention need to be spent? And I think some of that actually came up in this meeting as well. And so what we wanted to suggest was to take the topics, which are still all very important, but actually bring them under 3 separate subcommittees. The first being finance and facilities. So finance and facilities would address annual budget, anything related to facilities, and then we've also been asked by Templeton specifically to start talking about growth plans. And so that would be something that this group would tackle as well. And the reason that we thought finance and facilities really need to be together is because that growth plan would really be dependent on inputs on both of those topics. And so we can't really effectively create a growth plan if finance and facilities continue to meet separately. So that's suggestion number 1 for subcommittee number 1. Suggestion for subcommittee number 2 is district operations. So really this covers things that academic, administrative, policy, and long-term planning have been covering. That seems like a lot, but I will tell you the feedback I've been getting from those committees is there is a lot of repetitive content across those 4 committees. So what we're trying to do is reduce the repetitive content and to bring it together so that those, rather than having separate meetings about the same topics, we're having one meeting where those core topics get covered, and they're bringing those pieces back to the school committee to discuss. So those topics would be central office staffing. They would also cover core contracts, transportation, and insurance. So it is required that a subcommittee review those contracts should one of them open up. So right now that is not the case. Neither of those is open for consideration, but this committee would cover that should it be. It would also address anything related to academics assessment and district communication. So district communication also came up a lot in this meeting. So this committee would be looking into what are those very tangible things that we need to be doing to improve district communication, and giving that feedback to Dr. Cassavant and to Molly. And then finally, policy content updates, and I do want to be specific here about policy. So one of the things that was discussed is there's a lot of policy updates that are just grammar and spelling. And so one of our suggestions is that those actually come directly to school committee for consideration, because there isn't really value in having a subcommittee review a grammar or a spelling addition or something that's just coming through from MASC or whatnot that's just a legal language change, that those could come directly here and we can review those here and we can do the work that we need to do. But I did want to make sure that we left a space, because a occasionally there are things like concussion policy that actually requires original writing from the team, or original review of writing, and so we still needed to leave a space for that. So that would fall under district operations. The third is labor relations. So one of the results coming out of the recent negotiation process was that the UFCW wanted to see their work environment committee reinstated. And then the NDEA continues to be active with the labor management committee. And what those are spaces so that discussions and things that can be resolved in the moment do not wait for a contract negotiation, which is only every 3 to 4 years to be resolved. And so what this is a space that allows some of those topics to come up in a more casual setting, to work on relationship building, et cetera, but also to give a space where the school committee can be hearing from representatives of those unions on a regular basis. So the thought was that this would switch off every other month, that maybe UFCW one month and NDEA another month. That remains to be seen. This committee can decide exactly what that cadence is. I'm not going to prescribe that. They also would oversee sick bank. So someone from school committee needs to be a member of sick bank. What sick bank is there's a set of, basically unions contribute days to a central bank, and if someone needs to pull from that bank for an extended sick leave, someone from school committee needs to be present to help approve that. As well as overseeing anything related to negotiations of the negotiation cycle and making sure our team is set up. What this would do is it would dissolve the current committees. Of course, that does not include any, sometimes an ad hoc committee is set up, such as the naming committee, as needed if there's a naming, so an honorary naming committee need, for example, or if another committee needed to be set up because we've discovered you brought up a special dress code policy that we talked about putting that to equity. So of course those would still come up, but I wanted to put this out there for discussion. I know everybody's getting tired, but we can certainly push this off to August to discuss further, but I did want to at least make sure it got out there so that people could start considering it. So I would sort of leave it up to the committee whether you're feeling like making a decision tonight or whether you want to push this to August. I'm comfortable with either, but I did want to at least start the discussion.
Maybe you could send out a description of the new, committees that you want to do, so we'll have it, look
Yep.
at it and discuss it in August.
Yeah, great idea. It's in the content here, but certainly I can send it in a separate email. It's under the administrative content of the agenda item. But yes, no problem. So absolutely, let's move this to August so that we can have further consideration. But please do give input. Like I said, this is not by no means getting rid of any of the topics that are covered. It's just recalibrating it across fewer committees so that we can reduce some of the repetitiveness.
Jen, can I ask?
Yep.
So you're thinking to condense it down to these 3, and then is it that we can only have a max of 3 on each committee? Is that correct? I didn't know if there was issues with quorum
Yep.
I mean, typically there would be 8 of us, right?
Do you want to
So,
change that?
Can be
Um,
cool.
It can be up to
As long as you
4.
don't have a quorum,
Yep.
so 3 or 4
yeah.
on each, okay.
Yep. And so what we'll do is, in August, we'll have a discussion around the committees and see if everybody agrees with those being the subcommittees, because that is something for the full committee to decide. These are just my suggestions, so please do give input. And additionally, once we vote, once we decide, then what folks will have an opportunity to do is shoot me an email that just says, this is my top interest, second interest, third interest. I would additionally ask if anybody's interested in serving on more than one subcommittee, because 8 does not divide evenly across 3, inconveniently, but that's one thing that will get asked. So just a couple
That's
expectations.
where my question came from. And then just the last question, I know, so being on the finance committee and then also knowing about facilities, Dr. Cassavant likes to have, staff or admin. Like, We had Mr. Young, so I didn't know if that's something that you wanted to continue with, or facilities, there's some other gentlemen, Mr. Parker. So I didn't know if that was something that you wanted to continue with.
In terms of the committee,
Just-
part of
yeah,
it, sure, I mean,
yeah.
anyone can attend the meeting.
Yeah.
They're open meetings.
Yeah.
So
I mean, for me, being on finance, I enjoyed Mr. Young there. He just brought a different, dynamic perspective. So, yeah.
Great. Well, thanks very much. I appreciate your consideration, and, by all means, please do ping me with any feedback you might have or anything that I may not have considered. Just thought it would be easier, rather than having a discussion around what should our subcommittees be, I thought it would be easier to put something out there, and then you all are welcome to poke holes in that.
Okay, great. There's no correspondence that I am aware of. Okay. Not for the school committee, all right. So we will move on. We did have a request to change the school committee meeting date, specifically the day of the week that we meet. So rather than meeting on Wednesdays, there's a request to meet on Tuesdays or Thursdays instead. So though that was a request from a specific committee member, this is a good one to consider as a group, because the town select board meetings are on Wednesdays. And so our school committee meeting consistently prevents school committee attendance or participation in the select board meetings, or we have to get really creative with scheduling or keep meeting short or whatever. And so this is something that I would love for folks to consider. Do we need to vote if we want to change the day of the week that we meet, Hank? I couldn't find clear information on that.
No, we can just decide.
Okay.
And we'll have to change the postings, obviously.
Obviously. So what I have done is in the next one, I have written down the potential dates should we stick with a Wednesday. What I would ask is that if everyone, and I will send an email nudging all of you, if you could indicate your first, second, third preference across those 3 days. I am going to be honest, I would like to see, though Wednesdays are personally more convenient for me, I would actually like to see it change to a Tuesday or Thursday because of that select board. And that prevents select board from attending here, and it prevents us from attending select board, and so I think there's more opportunities to collaborate with our local towns if we should make a move. So I would encourage everyone to think whether or not that could possibly work, and to let me know. And then, if we're all in agreement that we probably don't need a July meeting, then what we'll do is we'll try to get that schedule updated between now and then, so that we have more than enough time to post should that August meeting change to Tuesday or Thursday instead. And please do give your input as well, because you all also attend these meetings, and so it's important for us to consider everyone involved and not just the school committee's needs. Okay. All right. So with that, anyone needing a July meeting in this moment? Needing?
Or rejected.
Okay, so with that said, our planned next meeting will actually be August 16th, 2023. Again, we reserve the right to schedule a July meeting should there be something come up that needs to be resolved, but we can do that at any moment as long as we get the appropriate notice. And does it still stand that we do not need executive session tonight? Okay. Knowing that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, so we are adjourned.